the backdrop to this is, if you had asked me about 5 years ago, I would have said to the question of, can you get enough probiotics from food? No, because you get about 1/10, maybe 1/4 of a serving in probiotic foods that you do from a dose of a probiotic capsule. But with more research, we're seeing two things. One, that there's a variability in the amount of probiotic in foods. And so as long as you're aiming for a minimally processed, minimally pasteurized, and fresher fermented food, you'll probably be getting a fairly sufficient dose of probiotic in that food. But also, perhaps more importantly than this, we're seeing with recent meta-analyses previewing all of the research on probiotic supplements that a lower dose than we initially thought is sufficient and might even be better. So when operating underneath a prior paradigm of the higher dose of probiotic, the better, then you could have concluded, well, food alone may be insufficient. However, with this newer data showing that the target daily dose of probiotic per day is lower than we thought, this allows us to change the conclusion to, you know what, food is probably sufficient. And let's go over to the table here that I wanted to run you through. So what you're seeing in this table, it's a little bit busy, but all the way to the left, you're seeing the Lactobacillus bifidobacterium type probiotic, the common species contained therein, and then the dose. And to every column to its left, what you're seeing is a different food: sauerkraut, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, kombucha, the species they contain, and then the dose in each one of these foods. Why this table is helpful is not to get necessarily into all of the details, but to see on more of a macro view that there's a similar, roughly speaking, number of species in a supplement as there is in various foods, and also that the dosages across either a supplement or various foods is fairly similar. So with the supplement, you're getting 1 to 50 billion, depending on the concentration of the supplement. And then with sauerkraut, 140,000 up to 14 billion. With yogurt, 1.7 million to 170 billion. With kefir, 16 million up to 250 billion. Kimchi, 15 billion to even 1.5 trillion, really high. And kombucha, 240 million up to 2.4 billion. And with the various species, you see most of the foods contain some sort of combination of lactobacillus or bifidobacterium species, although some have the healthy fungus Saccharomyces boulardii. And the dosages are not vastly different from what you see in the supplement. The key point here that ties this all together is prior thinking suggested, the evidence previously suggested, that high dosages, 50 billion, maybe even 100 billion CFU per day, was really what was needed. Now, part of this was due, in my opinion, and in my interpretation of the data, because earlier probiotic studies were using higher dosages. Over time, there's at least been an examination of, well, may we get benefit equal or better with a lower dose? And this turns out to be true. We've shared on the podcast not too long ago that 10 billion or less per day of the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium blend type probiotic supplement was found to be superior in most cases as compared to high dosages like 50 or 100 billion per day. So once we understand that 1 to 10 billion is probably the sweet spot, we look at these foods and we look at the upper limit of sauerkraut, 14 billion, yogurt, 170 billion, kefir, 250 billion, and so on. And we can at least make the inference that we're going to get the range that's ideal, perhaps even more, with foods, and we don't necessarily need to use supplements to hit that target.